So, Otis, I mean, you know, I can't imagine what that must have been like to hear that Otis had gone.
He is the only singer that I ever had to open their mouth and say something that made the hair on my arm stand up.
You know what always amazes me? Nothing ever ruffles you.
Back in the day, we went through a lot of things, you know. Matter of fact, when me and your father started out, we didn't stay in hotels.
Did you know that Otis Redding, the famous singer, had a terrible secret? What was this secret that he kept hidden? Did it have something to do with his personal life or his career?
I missed the plane. But this man, he always arrives. Come, what is it, rain, sleet, snow, and the rest? Like the postman, Otis Redding will be here.
Otis Redding is remembered for his amazing music, but was there more to his story? How did this secret affect him and his loved ones? Let's explore the mystery behind Otis Redding's secret.
I looked at Otis as an older brother. I always assumed he was older than me because he had so much more streetwise, and plus he was a big man. You know, he was 6'4". I was 6'7". He kind of towered over me.
Otis Redding was born in Macon, Georgia, and grew up in a big family. He was the fourth of 6 kids and the oldest son. His mother, Fanny, worked as a housekeeper, and his father, Otis Sr., was a preacher and a sharecropper. From a young age, Otis had a loud voice, and you could hear him from far away. He loved music and would copy the voices he heard on the radio. By the time he was 7, he was already singing gospel songs in a church group. People in his community started to notice him.
He believed in himself, very flamboyant, very sure of himself.
Otis and his family lived in Tyndall Heights, a housing project for black families. His father was a minister at a Baptist church where Otis sang in the choir and even played the drums.
His father was a minister. They were brought up in the church. Of course, I didn't know Otis then. So he had a strong religious background because he had to go to church every Sunday. He had to sing in the choir.
As he got older, he began singing at local talent shows. He was inspired by Little Richard, a famous rock and roll singer who was also from Macon. Otis was so good that he won talent shows again and again until they kicked him out for winning too much.
His father, he didn't want him singing rock and roll, but you know, Otis bought his father a brand new Ford when his father was preaching, and Otis had started having real success. He wanted his daddy to be proud of him.
As a teenager, Otis had a wild side. He would sneak out and take his father's car for joyrides. Of course, he probably got in trouble when he came home. His father wanted him to take a different path, but Otis had only one dream: to be a singer. He was determined to make it, no matter what. One day, a local guitarist named Johnny Jenkins heard Otis sing. Jenkins was impressed and invited Otis to join his band, the Pine Toppers. While performing one night in Macon, Otis caught the eye of a woman in the audience. They started talking, fell in love, and later got married.
His father, he didn't want him singing rock and roll, but you know, Otis bought his father a brand new Ford when his father was preaching, and Otis had started having real success. He wanted his daddy to be proud of him.
Her name was Zelma, and they had 3 children together. Even after getting married, Otis never gave up on his dream. He traveled to Los Angeles to record songs, but they didn't do well. He had to return home and work different jobs, like drilling wells and working at a hospital.
Otis was known to keep a job a week, long enough to get one paycheck, all right?
But nothing made him happy except music. He knew he was meant to be a star.
He said, "Oh, one day I'm gonna be rich." I said, "Whatever. You just need to get a job and let's get a life here."
In 1962, Otis got his big break. His manager, Phil Walden, arranged for Johnny Jenkins to record at Stax Records in Memphis. Otis was just supposed to be the driver, but he saw a chance to prove himself. At first, the studio workers thought he was just a valet, but then Otis met drummer Al Jackson Jr., who told someone to give Otis a chance to sing. When Otis sang "These Arms Are Mine," everyone in the room was shocked. His voice was so powerful that it gave them chills. The people at Stax knew they had discovered something special. Even though his first few songs didn't become hits, Otis never gave up. He kept working hard, and in 1964, he teamed up with singer Jerry Butler. Together they wrote I've Been Loving You Too Long, which became a huge hit.
I've been loving you.
Otis Redding was on top of the world in 1967. He had just returned from England, where he was treated like a king. The Beatles even sent their own limousine to pick him up at the airport. That kind of welcome was something he had never seen before. Backstage, famous stars like Tom Jones and Mick Jagger waited just to meet him. Otis was shocked. He said, "I've never been treated this way at home." The love from fans and musicians in Europe was unlike anything he had ever known. By spring 1967, Otis was heading back to Europe for another tour. This time, he was the star. Other great artists like Sam and Dave, Eddie Floyd, and Carla Thomas were with him, but Otis stole the show. Audiences went wild for his performances. Even though many of them didn't understand the words, they could feel the power of his music. His soulful voice touched people's hearts everywhere he went. Then came the Monterey Pop Festival in California. This was a huge event, bringing together some of the biggest rock stars like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, and The Who. Otis was thrilled to be part of it, but when he arrived, he looked different from most of the crowd. The audience was full of hippies in casual clothes, while Otis showed up in a sharp three-piece suit. But once he got on stage, his clothes didn't matter. His energy was electric. When he performed Shake, the crowd went crazy.
When the time going bad, shake with the feeling, shake.
He and his band played with all their hearts, giving one of the best performances of the night. It was a moment no one would forget. After the festival, things got even better for Otis. He was featured in big magazines like Esquire and Time, and movie offers started coming in. It looked like he was about to become one of the biggest stars in the world. But there was a problem. Years of powerful singing had damaged his throat, and he needed surgery. Still, Otis stayed strong. He had to rest his voice for 6 weeks, but he never showed fear. He was determined to recover and get back on stage. Otis Redding was living his dream in 1967, and the best still seemed to be ahead. Otis faced a life-threatening situation that no one could have expected. It happened during a performance at an after-hours club, but it wasn't the music or the crowd that almost killed him. Instead, it was the legendary James Brown, who showed up with 2 shotguns in hand, causing a night of chaos and violence. Otis, while singing sweet soul music, touching the hearts of his fans. But not all his fans were kind. Some of them were KKK sympathizers, people who didn't support African Americans. Despite the dangers, Otis didn't back down. He continued to perform in his hometown of Macon, Georgia, even after being told that his life was at risk. But as one former Stax Records executive said, Otis was an overcomer. He didn't let fear control him. After his show, things took a wild turn. Otis and his band headed to Club 15 for an after party. But when James Brown arrived, things got scary quickly. Witnesses said James wasn't there to talk or party. He came looking for Joe Tex, another singer he had issues with, but instead of just confronting him, James had 2 shotguns with him. Things escalated fast. Reports said James started shooting at people in the club. He hit 6 or 7 people, creating panic among the crowd. Otis and his band members, including Johnny Jenkins, tried to hide behind a piano to stay safe. It wasn't just a moment of anger. It was a full-on attack that shocked everyone there. But the madness didn't end there. After the shooting, someone from James' team started handing out $100 bills to calm things down. They gave money to everyone, including the people who were hurt. Johnny Jenkins, who was at the club that night, later said 7 people got shot, but instead of making the story bigger, the money handed out made everyone quiet. It was almost like the whole thing never happened. In the end, the situation at Club 15 ended just as quickly as it began. James Brown jumped into his tour bus and escaped the scene. The violence he caused left a lasting impression, But the strange part was how quickly the story disappeared. Everyone involved was paid off, and no one talked about it again. The danger Otis faced that night was swept under the rug, leaving people to remember him only for his music. In November of 1967, Otis Redding returned to Stax Studios in Memphis, ready to get back to work. After some time off, he had a lot of new songs to record, plus a few that had been waiting for a long time. The first day back in the studio, everyone was amazed by his voice. It sounded better than ever before. In just 1 week, Otis recorded 26 songs. Can you believe that? Today, many artists take a whole year to record that many songs. His energy and dedication to his craft were clear to everyone who worked with him.
So and I saw those girls at the pain. I don't want to get to me.
After just 3 weeks, Otis was ready to hit the road again. He had a new band, the Barkays, who were a group of young and talented musicians from Memphis. Otis treated them like his own kids. They were a family, and he took care of them. The Barkays learned a lot from Otis, and it seemed like they had a great time together. They had fun on the road, but they also respected Otis and his advice. The bond they shared was strong, and they admired him deeply. In early December, Otis and the Barkays flew to Cleveland to perform a few shows. On the last night of their tour, there was something extra special about the performance. The energy was high, and the crowd could feel it. It was a night to remember. Otis and the Barkays played their hearts out, leaving everything on the stage. But no one knew that this would be their last show together. Tragically, the next day, December 10th, Otis and his band flew to Madison, Wisconsin. The weather was bad and airport officials advised against flying, but Otis wouldn't cancel. He had never missed a show in his life. He was known for his dedication to his fans and always showing up. Unfortunately, the plane crashed into a lake near Madison, Wisconsin. Otis and most of the Barkays died in the crash. Only one member of the band survived. This tragedy not only took Otis's life, but also ended the futures of the surviving band members and left a big gap in the music world. It was a loss that shocked the music community and fans everywhere. Ben Cawley, the only survivor, was lucky enough to escape the wreckage. He later said how hard it was to survive while his friends were lost. He described waking up to realize that the people he had spent time with just hours earlier were now gone. James Alexander, another member of the band, was supposed to be on that flight but didn't make it because there wasn't enough room. He was on a different flight and planned to meet up with the others when they landed. Instead, he rushed to the crash site and had to identify his friends' bodies. He said he felt empty and numb. It was a loss that no one could prepare for, and it left a deep scar on everyone involved. His death at just 26 years old came when he was at the peak of his career. He had just recorded the song "Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay," which would go on to become one of the most famous songs in music history. The song was released in January 1968, just a few months after Otis tragically passed away. This song became his first big hit after his death, reaching #1 on both the pop and R&B charts.
So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay.
Many people believe he was just about to reach even greater success. He had big plans to take his music to a wider audience, including more white listeners. His wife Zelma once said that he was on the verge of a new stage in his career. She told him, "You're right. You are going to be new. You're not begging anymore." What she meant was that Otis was ready to move past the struggles of his early career and become a big star in the mainstream music world.
But if you really roll, not gonna bang with soul. Take with all your might.
Also in 1966, Otis recorded a demo of the song "You Left the Water Running." This demo was never meant to be released, but years later, it ended up causing a big legal controversy.
You left all that water running. It's running from the...
It all started when Redding visited FAME Studios to help out with a recording session. The studio's owner, Rick Hall, asked Redding to help with a song that Wilson Pickett was going to record. The song was called "You Left the Water Running." Hall wanted Redding to make a demo to guide Pickett in the recording process. Redding quickly recorded a simple version of the song and even added some extra parts to it. When Pickett recorded the song, he made sure his version was similar to Redding's demo. But in 1976, 10 years after Redding had recorded the demo, things took an unexpected turn. A record label called Stone Records decided to release Redding's demo of You Left the Water Running without asking for permission from Redding's family. The demo was sent out as a promo, and it was even paired with an instrumental track called The Otis Jam. This release caused a huge problem because the Redding family never agreed to let Stone Records use the song.
His soul-stirring, hip-shaking, chart-topping music still is powerful today because of the work of one person, his widow, Zelma Redding.
A music journalist named Dave Marsh, who had a strong interest in Redding's music, received a promo copy of the single. Marsh was intrigued by the track, and he told some of his friends about it, including his attorney, who worked with the Redding family. Marsh soon learned that Stone Records had not asked the Redding family for permission to release the demo, and they had to take the single off the shelves. When Marsh contacted the distributor of the single, he was told that the remaining copies of the song would be destroyed, but Marsh, with permission from the Redding family's attorney, decided to buy the remaining copies. Instead of letting them be destroyed, he gave them out as gifts. Today, these singles are very rare and worth a lot of money. It wasn't until 1987 that You Left the Water Running was legally released to the public. Atlantic Records, who owned the rights to Redding's music, included the song in a collection called The Otis Redding Story. This was the first time fans could legally hear the demo. Since then, the song has appeared in other collections, but the original single from Stone Records remains a rare and valuable item for collectors.
I've had nothing to live for. It looked like nothing.
In the weeks after Otis Redding's song Sitting on the Dock of the Bay was released, it became a hit. It was all over the radio, and soon it reached the top 10 on the charts. By March 1968, it made history by becoming the first ever posthumous song to reach #1 on the Billboard charts. This was a huge moment for Otis Redding, but it also made his fans mourn his loss even more. They realized how much more he could have accomplished if he had lived longer. Tragically, Otis died in a plane crash before he could see the full impact of his music. But after his death, his record label, Atlantic Records, put together an album using the song Sitting on the Dock of the Bay and other recordings Otis had made before he passed away. The album also included songs like The Glory of Love, Tramp, and the soulful I Love You More Than Words Can Say. The album was a big hit and helped solidify Otis's place in music history.
More than words can ever say.
What made Otis so special wasn't just his powerful voice. It was also his ability to write songs that really connected with people. His music made people feel something deep inside. On the album cover, there was a photo of Otis playing a guitar, showing that he was not just a singer, but a true musician who could create magic with his music. If Otis had lived longer, there's no telling how much more he could have done. Many believe he would have reached even more fans and become one of the greatest stars in music. At the time of his death, he was starting to explore new sounds and ideas in his music. Who knows what he could have created if he had been given more time. But even though he is no longer here, his legacy lives on through his music. His songs continue to inspire and bring joy to people around the world. However, things weren't always peaceful after Otis passed away. Like many famous people, there were fights over his music and his estate. Otis's sudden death left many people involved in his career scrambling to figure out what should happen next. His wife, Zelma, was given control of his estate, but there were disagreements about who should manage his music and how much money should go to his family and others involved in his career. Some felt they should have more control or a bigger share of the money from Otis's songs. Otis Redding's famous album, Otis Blue/Otis Redding, Sing Soul. Despite many attempts, no one has ever been able to say for sure who she is. The mystery surrounding her identity adds an extra layer of intrigue to an already legendary album. Otis Redding's music is known for its powerful voice and emotion, but the woman on that album cover has left many people curious. This was Otis Redding's third album, and it was different from the ones before it. On his first two albums, Otis's face was on the cover, but for Otis Blue, something changed. Instead of showing Otis's face, the album features a serene-looking blonde woman with a blue tint over the photo. The peaceful expression on her face seems to match the passionate and soulful music inside the album. The image was taken by photographer Peter Sahula, but the story behind the photo is unclear. It wasn't taken specifically for the album. In fact, there are no records of the photo session, and even Peter Sahula doesn't remember much about it. He also doesn't know the name of the woman in the picture. For many years, people thought the woman on the cover might be Nico, a German-born model who later became famous as a singer with the Velvet Underground. Some thought it made sense because Nico was a well-known figure in the 1960s, but Nico never confirmed if she was the one in the photo, and when she passed away in 1988, the question was left unanswered. Another possibility is a woman named Dagmar Draeger, also from Germany. There is very little information about her. A mention of her in Time magazine in 1964 describes her as one of the highest paid models in Manhattan at the time. But aside from this, there are no other clues about who she was or what happened to her. After all these years, it's almost as if she vanished from the public eye. This mystery has puzzled many people, including those working with Otis Redding's estate. The hope is that they will someday discover the true identity of the woman in the photo, giving fans a bit more closure about one of the most iconic album covers in music history. Until then, the woman on the cover of Otis Blue remains a mystery. But maybe that's part of the charm. Sometimes the unanswered questions only make something more intriguing. There was a time when journalist Joe Eszterhas shared a story that caused some people to raise their eyebrows. In the story, Eszterhas recalled an incident with legendary singer Otis Redding after one of his performances. According to Eszterhas, Redding used a racial slur when speaking to him. He claimed that after the show, Redding called him a white effing N-word. This story, while not widely backed up by other people, hinted at some possible tensions in the way Redding interacted with people from different races. Now let's take a moment to think about this. Otis Redding was known for his soulful music and became a famous figure in the 1960s. He is often remembered as a leader in the civil rights movement, a time when issues like racism were very prominent. Many people look up to Redding for his talent and for what he stood for. However, Eszterhas' story makes us question whether there might have been some personal struggles or conflicts that weren't always visible in Redding's public life. Anyway, Otis became one of the most successful soul singers of the 1960s, and his hard work paid off in many ways. And that is all for today until next time, bye.